Retirement is often seen as a destination, but we believe it's an opportunity to pursue your passions, realize your dreams, and live a purposeful life. Great decisions, incredible lives. Retire with Intention podcast is about more than just money. It's about embracing the things that truly matter, the experiences, the relationships, and the impact you leave behind. Here is your host, John Creekmore.
Well, hey everybody, John here, and welcome again to the Great Decisions, Incredible Lives, Retire with Intention podcast. And I'll tell you what, every single week I just get more and more encouraged with everyone I talk to, and I've had some phenomenal feedback, and thank you so much for listening. And, it's been kind of interesting, just the number of people that have reached out. I think I've heard from folks maybe in all 50 states now that I've never met before that are just walking away every single week with different takeaways. So encouraging to hear. So thank you for listening, and feel free to share information and refer people over. Again, this podcast is on every single podcast station out there, so you can really download it and subscribe wherever you're at. So thank you again for listening. Today, I am so excited to introduce you all to a new friend of ours, myself and our firm, Babs Plunkett. And we'll have all of information from Babs, how to get in contact with her, and how to find out more information about her different services and books and really tools that she has developed. It's a phenomenal resource. As far as in the show notes, be sure to check those out, links to her website and how to reach her. And so a little background, Babs Plunkett is a catalyst for choosing joy from empty nest to retirement. That's a big period of time, empty nest to retirement. And so a certified retirement coach, a life coach, and best-selling author of Choose Joy, 3 Keys to Investing Your Time in Retirement. Babs is also the founder of the Choose Joy Method to Rediscover Your Purpose online course and host of a free Facebook group called Empty Nesters, Joyful Purpose Club, a fun place to make new friends, swap ideas on living fully in this next phase of life, and it truly is that next stage of life. And so to contact Babs, be sure to check things out as far as www.babsplunkett.com. Hey, Babs, thank you so much for being with us today.
Great to be with you, John.
Awesome. Hey, can you share with everybody, briefly introduce yourself and kind of your background and just a little bit about who you are?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm Babs Plunkett, and the bio gave quite a good description, but I am a certified life coach and I'm a retirement coach. I got certified back in 1998 when that was still a new concept.
Wow.
I have worked with people through the lifespan, and my core passion right now is people empty nest through retirement. And I found that, anybody who's been a parent, even if they're in the retirement phase, if they haven't kind of closed the definition of their role as a father or mother, there can be some stuckness in there of kind of thinking, we either get our purpose from our work or we get our purpose from the defined roles in society, and being a parent is a huge one. So there's a lot of elements of that to transition so that we treat our adult kids like the adults that they are instead of stay thingy for them for our purpose.
So do you find that most people struggle in that transition initially, or is that something which they grow through in time?
Yeah, I was really surprised, John, when I started doing this work. I thought that I was going to work exclusively with people in retirement. And I was very surprised to discover that people early in the retirement phase, even, for women and men, women, though, that had worked full time, they talked about their purpose as still connected with their children. So it was surprising to me to see how much those are interrelated and how much in our culture, in our Western culture, we define ourselves by what we do. And the 2 things that we do the most of hours per day is our paid work and our roles as parents. And then, as you just shared, once the kids are gone, it's caring for aging parents. So those doing roles are how we define ourselves. And when those jobs, paid or, the at-home piece of it, are done, who are we then?
Right. So what do you see then? If we struggle with that so much, I know myself, we have 3 boys. Some of the listeners know we have 3 boys, and they're 30 and 27 and 24. So Stacy and I are empty nesters now. And so we're even trying to get used to, as far as changing the settings on the heater and air conditioner for fewer people in the house, right? And so, but even just trying to get used to that as far as our time, managing our time, we really were known throughout life, as you said, as really the parents of 3 boys. Our life was so wrapped up in raising them and really training them as far as in character, and then releasing them into a young adulthood. Now it's like, wow, first of all, who are we as individuals? And, I know you probably have seen lots of stories, sad stories actually, of people that have struggled in that race, but it seems to be all encompassing to us. It probably relates to our health, it relates to our mobility, the things that we do. It probably relates to a little bit of our activities, our joy or lack of joy. Do you see that walking through this journey, is it focused on one area, or is it kind of more of a holistic approach?
It's a holistic approach, John, and a framing that is helpful for people to see this emptiness phase before the retirement phase. We're fairly clear about retirement, that oops, I'm going to lose, I'm no longer going to show up at work 40, 50, 60 hours a day. I'm not going to be there. But the first thing we retire from, I have come to see, is full-time parenthood. So
Wow.
when we retire from full-time parenthood, if you're, with three boys, you were probably on a ton of sports sidelines, extracurricular sidelines. The friends that you hung out with were probably the parents of your boys' friends.
Yeah.
So the first thing we retire from is that role as parents. So in that, we lose the structure of our after work hours, our weekends, those tournaments and all that's done. We lose a lot of the connections that we had. So we lose some friendships, and we lose one of the ways that we define ourselves. The same thing then is true with retiring from paid work. We lose the structure of our day. We lose the definition of our role in the world, and we usually lose the connections that went with that. We
Hmm.
usually don't expect that. We go, I've worked with these people for 30 years. I'm going to stay in touch. Maybe, but sadly, mostly no. The person that's left in the work role is like, who do I get my invoices from? And you're on your way.
Yeah.
So the struggles in emptiness are really similar to the struggles in retirement. It's just an iterative wave of transitions.
Hmm. And I'm sure that applies not just to some of those practical things as far as our daily schedule and the things that we're doing, but do you find it also applies maybe to a level of joy, level of contentment, level of finding purpose and meaning also?
Absolutely, yes. In both our paid work and our roles as parents, they're quite prescribed. Maybe they're unconscious, but if you wouldn't have to think very long to define what society says equals a good dad, a good mom, a good worker.
Hmm.
And the way that you spend your time then, when I'm on the soccer sidelines, lacrosse sidelines, the play, whatever, for my kids, that's a good parent. Maybe you coached, that's a good parent. It defines how you invest your time, and it brings you tons of joy.
Hmm.
Nothing probably brought you more joy than the time you spent with your boys.
Right.
And so for decades, if you got a 32-year-old, it was 2.5 decades that you and Stacy were investing your time outside of your work in these human beings. And then
Hmm.
you did a good job. Good job, dad, mom, they're off. And then you have all the 20 extra hours a week
Hmm.
to redefine how do you want to invest that time outside of your paid work.
Hmm.
Add retirement to that, and how then you define your role, how you invest your time meaningfully is yet another wave of questions. And when we're doing the parent thing, when we're doing the paid work thing, it's satisfying. We're happy, mostly if you like your work, but it's certainly as a parent, you're happy to give all those decades of time. So a lot of the people that I work with, they're smart, they're competent, they get stuff done in every other area of their life. So they feel really confused and frustrated that they can't figure out
Hmm.
what they like to do outside of their role as a parent or a paid worker. Like, I'm smart. Well, like, how can I not know this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Lots of people don't know this because they invested their time in other things for decades and paused
Wow.
hobbies, volunteering, whatever.
Yeah. Is it a challenge? Do people, do they know how they can actually start to re-engage and find that level of contentment and joy, or is that a struggle for them as they transition to that next phase?
For many people, it is a struggle. For some, it's a shorter struggle. Maybe if they happen to have kept hobbies going or had longed for something and they've just been carrying that and like, oh, finally I can learn to play the guitar or,
Mm.
whatever. But many people, especially really high achievers, probably were working since they were 14. They maybe did sports as a kid, maybe their body isn't cooperating with still being a football player or whatever. And so they are surprised by how challenging it is. And they feel kind of embarrassed that they can't think of anything. Like, what's the matter
Mm.
with me? Why can't I
Yeah.
think of
Yeah.
what I love?
Yeah. What was the inspiration behind your book, Choose Joy: 3 Keys to Investing Your Time in Retirement? Was it simply, as I know in the book, it's a lot of stories, a lot of great stories. Was it kind of just meeting people and hearing their stories of those that were doing it well? Is that kind of what prompted you to write in that book?
No, it's a little bit like what you were sharing as we were chatting, that your mom,
Mm,
and your dad didn't keep their mobility going. For me, this will sound crazy, but I first got interested in how to age well with joy when I was 13.
wow.
And when I was 13 years old, my grandma moved in with my family, and she was the crabbiest human that I'd ever met. And as a young person, I'm like, oh my God, like, am I genetically programmed to grow up like crabby grandma?
Sure.
I didn't know I was 13. So I started asking people as a 13-year-old, that's the kind of weirdo kid I was, like, if they were happy, like, were you born this way or did you make up your mind? My
Mm,
first person I asked was my seventh grade teacher, Mr. McMullen, and he was the first of hundreds of people to say, oh no, they could name when they made up their mind to live with intention. You mentioned intention, that's a big value. That's what they said. They made up their mind to choose joy. I did my honors thesis in college on this, and then I did marketing and lots of other things. But I've been curious about this. Then my mom, when she was at the end of her life, was as crabby as her mom. Although she said, girls, you tell me I'm not, if I'm ever like her. So to me, I felt this imperative to figure this out, that I
mm,
couldn't just count on my good attitude right now as a relatively younger person. So I started interviewing people like, how do you do this? I interview wise ones that are 10, 20, 30, 40 years older than I am to
mm.
find out, how did they do that?
Yeah,
And so I cast the net wide to ask anybody, who do you know that makes you feel like, I want to grow up to be like her?
right.
Oh, there was so much fun
Wow.
to interview these incredible people.
So much fun. So was there any common characteristics that you saw in those stories?
Yeah, really great question. Yes. The two common things that I would say, John, are they universally dispelled a myth about finding purpose in retirement. I think what a lot of people get bogged down with is a belief that you leave this giant thing, your paid work and parenting, and so you're looking for this giant thing. So we think of purpose as this one big singular thing, and it's like the clouds parting and the tablets being delivered to Moses. Instead, hundreds of people that I interviewed, it is just what you're saying, an intentional collection of choices that align with your values. Exactly
Mm,
what you share with your clients.
wow.
So, and then it aligned their values in 3 ways, ensuring that in a typical day, typical week, typical month, they have 3 things going on. They have something to engage their mind with a sense of purpose. It can be a variety of things, but things that really matter to them and make an impact. You talk about that too.
Mhm.
Then moving your body, and you talk about health and well-being. Just 20 minutes a day is enough to bring significant health benefits. And then the third is connecting with others. So we have engage your mind with a sense of purpose, move your body, and then connect with others. And I'm sure that you hear this from others that you interview. Loneliness is an epidemic. It was an epidemic before our pandemic. And the Harvard study on adult development is the longest study on adult development, said this startling thing, that loneliness kills at the same rate as smoking and alcoholism.
Mm,
It's a
wow.
that imperative.
That is staggering. It
It is.
really is to think that through. And yet, I'm sure that all of us, I know myself, I can think of so many people that were in that phase of life and they were very lonely with their daily activity and their life expectancy got shortened, much shorter than I thought what their health would actually force them to be. I thought that they're going to live so many years and yet they passed away. But they were, when you think about it, they were lonely people.
Yeah. And many, 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 I mean, it is an epidemic. And
Mm,
so connecting, even a connection with one person can have health benefits, can decrease Alzheimer's, can decrease the risk of heart attack. It's profound. So
mm,
what I do with my clients is help them get reconnected with themselves. And
yeah.
what are their values? What are their skills outside of their work? What are they passionate about? What do they really care about? And then to create a collection of intentional choices that align with that, and then put it on their calendar so you don't have to rely on
Mm,
a good night's sleep, which becomes
right.
more expensive, or good attitude. It's built into how you live.
So you outlined three keys here,
Mhm.
and on surface, on paper, they seem simple. It's
Right.
like, well, why would you not do these? But do people have hurdles to actually accomplishing those three things or making them a so what would keep someone from doing those three things?
Oh my goodness, so many things. So the loneliness one, when somebody's in there, there's a self-talk that says, well, there's nobody out there. I live too far away from my family. I'm retired now, and my friends were all from work. This is particularly true, John, for men. Men
Mm,
tend to rely on their spouse for their
yeah.
social connection. So if the marriage ends, which 50% of marriages do end in that empty nest phase, it's a huge
Mhm.
spike, then they don't have the tools, the resources to connect. True though with women as well. Women who are mothers and working, they're busy. So their friends are at work, their friends are on their kids' sidelines. And it's a shock when their kids leave them, like, I just spent 15 years going to tournaments. What? We're not staying in
Yeah.
touch. So you got to start over, and that can be difficult. And then time, if you're also still working full time, and then tending aging parents, there's time.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I'll just say, Babs, you're actually speaking very convicting language to me. We're in the empty nest syndrome stage right now with Stacy and I, and we work hard and we really impact a lot of lives, and we see a lot of cool things and do a lot of fun stuff. And yet, so much of whenever we do things socially, it's really dependent for me on Stacy and
Yeah.
our friends that she engages and she sets those up. And
Mhm.
I think I have a lot of solitary time whenever I'm the one responsible for setting up those social interactions. I can see how very easily that whatever it might be, 10, 12, 15 years down the road, that would be a struggle for me. And I think it'd be a struggle for a lot of people. So I can really see that. So all of a sudden now I'm sitting there thinking, okay, there as far as those three keys. And they've been outlined, and yet there's hurdles to accomplishing them. I know
Mhm.
you have put together a number of incredible classes and other resources. Whenever you kind of think of those resources and classes, how can people interact with that? Is it simply as simple as getting your book and reading it? Or is it better for them to kind of walk through a class or engage in some other way?
I mean, starting with my book is a great place. There, it's a collection of 50 stories of how wise ones have done it. At the end of each story, sort of like Chicken Soup for the Soul. They're very readable, a little bedtime story. And then there's a try this idea after each story. So if something
Love that.
inspires you, there's a concrete action you can take. There's a free guidebook that goes along with the book that can help you. If you are a woman joining my free Empty Nesters Joyful Purpose Club, I post content 5 days a week. So if you feel very self-motivated and you feel like, I got this, go for it.
Sure.
If you feel like so many, you know you're smart, you're competent, you're like, but I'm just not figuring this out. It's been a couple of years and I'm still not figuring it out. Then, something that you espouse, John, is get wise counsel.
Yeah.
Be smart. Don't waste a couple of years.
Mhm.
A jarring wake up for me when I was in that emptiness phase was realizing I still have 25, 35 years. The actuarial tables would put me, at 85,
Yeah.
87, a woman. I'm 60 right now. So 25 more years of living to be stuck for
Right.
25 years. I'm not going to waste it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Think you're going to poke it through if you're not finding answers. Don't waste. The life's too short.
Hmm. It truly is. I mean, and one of those key things for all of us financially, regardless of where we're at, we're all managers of the time that we've been given. And so
Mm.
to all of a sudden waste a year or waste 2 years just because we don't want to walk through the process, not being a good manager of our resources, which is our time. And so now you had mentioned women as far as your materials applicable for both men and women, but do you have a specific class for women? Is that kind of what I was?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yes, I do have a course that's exclusively for women. It's called the Choose Joy Method to rediscover your purpose. And it guides women. I did it for women because women tend to prefer to process in a group. And I have found men tend to prefer to process one-on-one. So I work with men in a one-on-one,
Yeah,
guiding the same concepts. But
sure.
fundamentally getting reacquainted with yourself, of those things that I mentioned. What are your, so well aligns with what you do, John. So it is, what are your values? What are your skills outside of your paid work, or skills that you want to carry forward from your paid work,
Mhm.
this next
Mhm.
phase of life? What do you care about? What are your passions? And then creating a plan through a variety of things, literally to invest your time on a typical day, typical week, typical month. So your choices are aligned with the things you care about. It sounds basic, but it takes some work. And then for both men and women, as we've lived a few decades, we tend to carry with us maybe some limiting beliefs, a little bit of baggage. So I work on
Yeah.
that. For women, they're women of our generation, although sadly it's still true for younger. There's a lot of people pleasing. We put
Mhm.
our worth is based on making other people happy. For men, a kind of classic thing is being the provider. For a man, comes from being a good father, a good provider. So when the job of dad and provider is done, what is your worth?
Yeah.
So really getting clear on many other ways that you can give your good to the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking, it really, whenever you kind of walk through this, I keep on thinking of the word listening. And
Mhm.
uh, and it's kind of like active listening is more than just listening, but it's being engaged in the process. So you mentioned with the women kind of being more engaged and processing within a group, whereas the men kind of process a little bit more individually.
Mhm.
How does active listening play into folks as they're walking through this journey on actually going into some concepts, some deeper thoughts on helping them kind of walk into that journey of joy? Is active listening a high? They need to be an active listener, I guess, is the question, in order to be able to process through things well.
So is your question, do they need to be an active listener or am I an active listener for them?
I would say both of those.
Yes. By all means, active listening is core to how I support people. And with that active, deep listening, help them hear their own wisdom. I hear it both from men and women, but I'm thinking of an attorney that I'm working with right now who is not used to sharing his thoughts and his feelings. And
Hmm.
so have a safe place to really reflect. He just marvels that this is possible and what he can learn to process out loud, process in written form, process in the variety of tools that I can provide. He just is finding it revelatory to get
Yeah.
reconnected with what does he care about? How does he want to live? What does matter to him? So it's both.
It's both. Now, Babs, I know that it's incredible the last number of years how we've kind of gone from being geographically constrained as far as who we work with to where now, we can be in different parts of the world to be able to work together. If folks say, hey, I'm going to get Babs' book and read through there, I'm going to start to actually think through and process some things. But I'd like to have a conversation directly with Babs or kind of walk through some of this. Would they need to be geographically close to you, or is that something where you can work together remotely, or what does that look like?
I work exclusively I work exclusively in a remote
Mm.
method. I
Yeah.
have had clients from Nova Scotia to British Columbia to
Wow.
Southern Florida and California to everything in between. I've even connected with people in India and somebody in Romania. So yeah, uh, anything is possible with,
Mhm.
connecting just like you and I are today.
Yeah. When I kind of think through this, as far as just walking through action steps, and I'm a big believer in having some very firm action steps whenever we walk through things. And
Yep.
so when folks are looking to create this concrete plan for living that life of joyful purpose, and they're saying, I want to walk through that. Is there some general advice that they need to be thinking about before they walk into that conversation? Or is there some general thoughts they need to be having or some preliminary ideas that they need to be chewing on?
Yeah, I would bring it right back to the three keys that I offer in my book, John. So if somebody is a go-getter and they feel like, this is pretty easy, I can do it myself, please do. And it is not simply, but the approach then is to think really thoughtfully, soulfully about what you care about and choose at least one activity to engage your mind with a sense of meaning outside of your paid work. It really makes a difference to begin something 2, 3 years before you retire. So you're not retiring from something, but rather you can be retiring into something.
Uh,
So choose something to engage your mind. And I want to just throw in here, only 30% of the population volunteers. So engaging your mind, if you're a volunteer, you're like, well, that's easy peasy. I'm going to volunteer. Good if you're 30%. For the other 70%, it might be a creative passion. It might be learning something new. It could be a wide variety of things. So one, get aligned with what you care about and find a way to engage your mind with a sense of purpose. Something that you can do weekly. Two, move your body at a minimum of 20 minutes every day. It can be anything. Gardening, walking, pickleball, it could be a wide range of things. So find a way to move your body minimum 20 minutes a day. And then the third is to do the work to connect with other people. And again, research shows even one connection can make a difference. The sort of bonus is sometimes you can combine them. I'll give one example of ways when people say, but my best friends all live far away and we moved and I live in an isolated place. A simple way to get two of those three going is to do what I call a walk and talk. Put your earbud, connect with a friend anywhere in the world, set a phone date and go for a walk. I have a friend who lives 2,000 miles away and we walk every Monday. I have a brother who lives 1,000 miles away. We have a standing phone date twice a month. So you can combine, and I go for a walk along the creek. So there's ways to combine them, ways to bridge the loneliness thing outside of geography with what technology makes possible.
I love the practical. I love the simple, Babs. I love how you actually have time periods in there, which gives people actionable steps. And I wrote all three of those down with the time frames. I'll start incorporating that in my life tomorrow. Those are huge takeaways. That is just so meaningful and so helpful and impactful. And I can't believe we're at 25 minutes already, which is just incredible. So I know Mackenzie just sent me a message about kind of wrapping things up. Hey, whenever we kind of look about the things we've talked about, Babs, if people want to connect with you or get more information from you, what's the best way for them to be in touch and find more information out about you?
Easiest way is to go to my website, which is babsplunkett.com. So the free copy of my book or a sneak preview of my book, the guidebook to the book, a free Empty Nester's Guide to Joyful Purpose is there, and an invitation to do my free group and to connect with me one-on-one. Got it all there.
Yeah, guys, everyone, I'll be sure to make sure you check those things out as far as with Babs on her website and definitely connect with her. I'm sure we'll be bringing Babs back later on as far as for just a refresh and provide some other resources available brought to you by Babs. And so phenomenal job. Thank you so much for walking with us today for the last 30 minutes. It's been a phenomenal conversation and very helpful. Thank you so much for being here. And everybody, thank you so much also for listening to the latest edition of Great Decisions, Incredible Lives, Retire with Intention. And look forward to catching you all next time. We get together next week. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Thank you again for listening to the Great Decisions, Incredible Lives, Retire with Intention podcast with host John Creekmer. Follow us on social media, visit our website, and join our community of like-minded individuals redefining retirement and living incredible lives. Please leave us a review and share our podcast with others who may benefit. We wish you a future filled with purpose, fulfillment, and the joy of living your incredible life in retirement.